Hey, how is everyone? Sorry that I missed the live that I had scheduled earlier. Sickness has hit my house, so I kind of just waited to come live whenever I could. I guess if you guys can only imagine, I have a sick toddler in the house, so he's a pretty demanding dude these days. Hey, Love Solark, how are you? So I thought I would come live tonight and talk about the Dozier School for Boys. I know a few of you have talked with me about these boys before. Give me just a second. I've got my phone going too. There we go. Is everything good with my sound? But at any rate, what I wanted to do tonight was go over a documentary that PBS put out on them and just revisit their story and go a little bit more in depth than I went before, because it really is a shame what happened down there in Marianna, Florida, or however you say it. I am very bad at pronouncing that. Give me just a second. I'll share my screen with you here. Okay, that should pull it up. Give me just a second here and I'll share this with you guys. Awesome. There we go. So, I don't know how many of you are familiar with this story or how many of you have even read about it before. But just to touch on it real quick, they used it approximately from like 1900 to 2011. It was supposed to be, like for troubled children convicted of crimes, and they were supposed to receive some training and education, so they can become good citizens. But it's really not how it went there. It turned out to be where they had a lot of beatings, and there's a graveyard there that has the kids who didn't survive their beatings. So it's just a really sad story. It's a really sad thing that happened right here in America, in Florida at that. And it happened not like way back in the day. It happened until recent years. I mean, 2011 is pretty recent. But children that was sent to Dozier as wards of the state endured mental, physical, and sexual abuse. Beatings often occurred inside a small building on the grounds that was known as the White House. They would send kids here for doing stuff like skipping school or getting caught smoking cigarettes. Like, it was just all really weird. But at any rate, Florida officials finally shut down the institution in 2011 after allegations of assaults by staff, and there was suspicious deaths. So the deaths were taking place until the day it closed. Hey, Connie, how are you? It's always good to see you here. So historically, it shows that nearly 100 boys ages 6 to 18 died at the school between 1900 and 1973. Many are not identified and were buried in unmarked locations. So I think this is, I don't know if you guys know Ripper Jack, and I know Checking Convictions was one that talked about the Dozier School for Boys a lot. But that's why they cover it so much, is because there is so many unidentified. There's a lot of these boys that they found in these unmarked graves when they went excavating, but I'm sure this documentary covers that. So what I want to do tonight is start this documentary. We should get through it. It's 58 minutes, so I'm going to go ahead and start it here. Maybe.
Increase your profit and work less time with Kittle, a genius new AI tool which is perfect for print on demand. You can conquer any niche you choose. All you need is a good.
Tales of rape, torture, and even the murders of dozens of boys right here in our own backyard of Marianna, Florida. Hi, I'm Dee Dee Sharp. Welcome to this special edition of The Aware Show, where we focus on the Arthur G. Dozier School for Boys.
This original WSRE presentation is made possible by viewers like you. Thank you.
Today, tales of horror,
Dorothy.
torture,
How
and
are
the
you?
murders of dozens of children right here in our own backyard of Marianna, Florida. Hi, I'm Dee Dee Sharp, and welcome to this special edition of Aware. The Florida School for Boys, also known as the Arthur G. Dozier School for Boys, opened its doors January 1st, 1900. Dozier was a reform school operated by the state of Florida in the quiet panhandle town of Marianna, officially nicknamed the City of Southern Charm. Unfortunately, the boys who were incarcerated at Dozier were not recipients of such Southern hospitality. Throughout its 111-year history, Dozier gained a reputation for alleged abuse, beatings, rapes, torture, and even murder of students by the staff. According to some reports, despite periodic investigations, changes of leadership, and even promises to improve, the allegations of brutality and torture continued. The Florida Department of Justice closed Dozier
Hey,
in
Ada. How are you?
2011. But still open are the emotional wounds for scores of boys, now men, who live to tell their stories and the stories of dozens of others buried at Dozier without a voice. Joining me in the studio now are two gentlemen who are survivors of Dozier. They are known as the White House Boys. Mr. Robert Straley is a spokesperson for the White House Boys and has worked tirelessly to organize survivors of Dozier. And next we have Mr. Andrew Puel, who is also known for his efforts to support survivors and be a voice for those who were not so fortunate. Both men have written books about their experiences and are seeking justice for those who were victims of the abuse at Dozier as well. Thank you, two men, for joining us.
Thank
Robert, Andrew, for being so courageous to be spokespersons for what happened to you and what you believe happened at Dozier School. We certainly appreciate you for joining us here for the Aware Show to talk to our viewers about what your experiences were, where we are right now with the investigation, as far as you know, and any other information you want to share with us on behalf of those who are not able to be here.
Now that they're getting here to victims, I don't know if they'll have him on this one because I haven't watched it. But another one that I watched, there was a man named Charles Fudge, and I think I'll go back through and try to find that Explore With Us video, and we might watch it too tonight. But he was sent to Dozier in around 1960-ish. I think he was 12 years old, but he had skipped school and smoked cigarettes. So they sent him there. And he said that on his third day there, he endured the worst beating of his life. He said it's overwhelming and that he couldn't walk past the bed or even get close to it. And then Fudge and others who went there called themselves the White House Boys after the name of the building where they were beaten. We'll look at pictures of that White House if you guys want to. It is bad. I'm going to go ahead and play this, and I'll be pulling up pictures of that for us to look at.
Here, for one reason or the other. I'm going to start with you, Robert. How did you come to be an inmate at Dozier School for Boys?
I kept running away from home. My mother was bipolar and very abusive. I was bipolar. And when I hit puberty, somebody had to go. It wasn't going to be her. And I started running away. And then when I got in the juvenile home, I didn't really care much for it there and ran away from the juvenile home 3 times. On the third time, when they caught me, they put me in a constricted area. And the next thing I knew, I was being put in a van and on my way to Marianna. I looked around and I was struck by the beauty of the place to begin with. I thought it looked like a school or a college campus because there was rows of brick buildings, 4 cottages. They were red brick, and they had plants all the way around them, trimmed. Everything was neatly trimmed. It looked like it had just been mowed. Tall pine trees, elms and oak. It was beautiful, and I thought, gosh, I could stay here.
And once again, how old were you? What year was this?
This was 1963, towards the end of summer. I was 13. I was rather small for my age, weighed 105 pounds. Just missed getting into the little boys' cottage. They put me into Tyler Cottage, which was I guess would have been 13 to 15.
So you were with older inmates as well
I
as
was the
young.
smallest boy there, and I could tell it the minute I got in there. They gave us state-issued clothes, which was a white t-shirt, blue pants, and brogans, which was a kind of a boot. And I went into the cottage, and right away the boys started pushing me around, and letting you know where your place was in the pecking order. So I went outside, and there was 4 boys sitting on a bench in state clothes.
Well, thank goodness that, she had a family that was there for her to advocate for her, because that's a bad situation to be in. I've listened to quite a few of these interviews, and I mean, it's heartbreaking because they're helpless children. I mean, that's all it is. They're helpless. They just have to be there. They had no choice in the matter.
Clothes. Now you could have your own clothes if your parents would send them up. So I went over there and sat next to them. They were talking about running away because all they could see was a woods, and they thought they could just run all night and evade these people and not get caught. And they asked me if I wanted to go, and I said, no, I've been on the run for 3 weeks, and it's not as much fun as you would think. I'm going to stay here a while. However, there was a snitch behind us and turned us in at 8 o'clock that night. Troy Tidwell, it was a one-armed man, and R.W. Hatton, who was a slim man, but one of the worst beaters there. And
Y'all all hear about this one-armed man a lot. I guess he was one of the major abusers at this school.
they took one of the big cottage boys with us in case somebody couldn't hold the bed or something like that. And we were taken
That's true.
into a black sedan and driven over just a block away to the White House. And it was a long, narrow building. You went in a side door. They lined you up against the wall, and then they took you through a doorway. There was a fan up there, large industrial fan, and they would turn it on. It made a huge racket. I was at the end of the line, which was not good. You wanted to be at the first of the line to get in and get it over with. Otherwise, you were going to hear everything till those boys were beaten. And they took the first boy in, and you could hear grunts and then groans, and then that turned into screams, and just, oh, God help me, Mama, and just noises I'd never heard before. People in real pain, and I guess you would have
I hate to keep interrupting him, but if I don't mention stuff when I think about it, I'll forget because I have a horrible memory. But I've listened to, like I said, quite a few of these interviews, and I don't know what all they'll tell, but one of them was talking about being, after they get beat, going back to the bunk or whatever, and having to help pick material out of the wounds of another boy and soak him in peroxide so that, essentially he could survive. And, 12-year-old, 10-year-old boys taking care of each other in that way. I just thought that was very heartbreaking.
had to been a person that was in war or an ambulance attendant or something like that to really hear people screaming like that. And the first boy came out, and his eyes was wide. He'd been crying. His face was chalk white. His hands was buried in his crotch, and he was walking stiff. And he was in shock. Now, I didn't know what shock was at that time, and that's how it went. And by the time they got to me, I was in shock from hearing this, and they just led me in there. It was like being in a dream that you couldn't stop for some reason. They took me in, and there was a
Love Stelark, that's a good question. The only thing I can figure so far is that simply they didn't believe these boys because they were, the troubled kids. That's the only thing I can think of. Or they were very good at hiding it. I mean, they didn't abuse every child. I'm not sure how they picked them, but it wasn't every kid. But they failed several. It was something where that the system was failing these boys because they failed several. I'm sure they'll get into it. Inspections and things over the years. It's crazy what they let go on here, and they let it go on. The state of Florida let it go on for many years.
Army cot, an old Army cot, and you placed your hands on the rails, turn your head to the side, don't let go over the rail, don't set up, don't scream, or we'll give you more. you know.
Let me stop you right there before you go any further. Your story is riveting.
Since she stopped right there, I will stop too, and I'm going to share this other screen with you guys and show you the inside, what they're talking about here about the White House. So this is the place they're talking about here. They nicknamed it the White House, and I guess you can see why. But you can see here is one of the places that they dug up, and you can see where they found graves. You can see here where they were recovering remains that were in unmarked graves. More. And here are all the unmarked graves, or all the graves that they had there. Some of them anyways. Who knows how many more, or if they have more. Let's see. See where they put their name in the walls. You can see the bloody handprints and stuff. Statues. It's all really sad. But I mean, I think it's something that everyone needs to be aware of, because I didn't know about this for the longest time, and couldn't believe it, because we all need to be aware of this so that it never happens again. I mean, this is living a nightmare, you know? Okay, we'll get back to the video now. Let's see here. Sorry, I was trying to look at chat, but I'm not very good tonight, guys. I'm not feeling 100, so I get a pass. Let's see. Here we go.
I just want to take a moment to caution our viewers. These are the stories and the opinions of Mr. Robert Straley and Mr. Andrew Puhle, and we are talking about the Arthur G. Dozier School for Boys. But I do want to say a couple of things. These are allegations that have been made, and the latter thing that I want to make sure we put out here is that viewer discretion is advised, as our stories could be graphic to some.
So she's probably saying this because nobody's ever been officially charged that I know of. Now, they did find that abuse was happening and they shut it down and stuff like that. But as far as I know, as far as individuals, no one has been charged with anything. So that's probably why she had to put that little disclaimer out there. So I thought I would mention that.
Some degree and in nature. So we just want to make sure that we put that out there. And I didn't want to interrupt you, but as you're going into the story and I'm listening to the details of it, you know, we're compelled to make sure that we let our viewers know those things right off the top.
I can
you
finish
go
that
back
off pretty shortly.
Well, we're going to get you've got time. I want you to tell your story. This is your story. It's not mine.
Right.
But we need our viewers to understand that these are still under investigation. They're allegations to some degree. But please do finish. Whatever your yes,
Robert,
sure.
that happened to you the very first day you were there?
My first day,
Oh
yes.
my, that must have been horrible.
Well, it was an eye opener, that's for sure. And so I got down on the bed, and this one-armed man, Mr. Tidwell, started beating me. I couldn't see what he was beating me with. The first 7 or 8 licks was so hard, it knocked me down this far into the bed. And I thought, what am I being hit with? You know, a 2x4? You know, I couldn't imagine. And I was stupid enough to let go of the rail and turn around and take a quick look. And it looked like a barber strap. You know, at first was my first impression. And so immediately when I did that, they jumped on me. And I got maybe 10 more licks. I think I got 30.
So according to other boys in interviews that I've seen, the strap that they're being beat with is 2 thick pieces of leather with a thin sheet of metal in between it. So, you know, it had a pretty stout pop to it. If you could only imagine being beat with something made up of that.
35 or 40 lashes, you know.
Your first day?
First,
Again, I mean,
first night there, you know, hello. And then they took us back to the cottage, and we went and got in the shower, ripped our underwear off, with just boxer shorts, and I went in there, took a shower, new boxer shorts to bed. You know, that was my first day. And I thought, oh my God, I've stepped into a beautiful hell.
Wow. We're going to get to some of your other stories because that was just your first day, but you have at least 2 more
Yes.
huge parts of the story that you want to tell from your personal experience. But I want to give Andrew a chance to kind of chime in with your first day. When did you first get to Dozier, and why were you there?
I
Could
vandalized
you
my
imagine your
school,
first day somewhere?
and it was
Oh,
here in Pensacola. Because it's funny, my niece the other day, she was showing me uh, Facebook, old Warrington people, and they brought up the crime that I did almost 49 years ago. And I'm
So what year was this?
66.
Okay.
So I'm thinking, you know, like, do you ever outlive your
40 years ago.
yeah, 49 years ago,
49 years ago.
and people are still talking about um, the vandal the
The
way
vandalism at the school.
I turned the fire hoses on in the school.
you
And
know, that's one thing I see
flooded
a lot. Um, the one that I talked to that had went to the school in the 90s, and I know Ada said that she had worked with someone that went to the school in the 90s. He was a runaway and he was on drugs, and then in his adult life he also had criminal behaviors. So I think that they were able to get away with it because some of the boys weren't trustworthy, I guess, if from society's point of view. I don't really know how to say it because I don't want to say anything bad because they're good people. Um, or from what I know, you know, they've never hurt me. So, yeah. Anyway, at any rate, the punishment, I don't know. There's nothing that I can think of for a child to do for that punishment to stick. You know what I mean? I don't know what kind of punishment. Yeah. 12, even younger than 12 sometimes. I'm pretty sure we'll see, but I've listened to so many. Court ordered, yeah. I don't remember the guy that I talked to, how he said he ended up there, but I know he stayed there for the better part of a couple years and he still has PTSD from it. A lot of things happened there, but I'm not going to talk about his story because that'll be for another time.
the school, and people making
Basically being mischievous. As you would say.
you know, it was the stupid thing to do.
How
And
old were you?
16,
16.
older than Robert, and it embarrassed my family. And of course, having your kid sent away to a reform school. Matter of fact, the newspaper made said their smirks
What did he
wiped
say
off
his
their
crime was?
faces.
Vandalism?
Marianna is no bed of roses. So I mean, the community knew. I think Marianna was set up to be kind of a scared straight kind of thing. You ever see these TV prep?
So if you knew you were going off to Marianna, whoa, you is basically what you're saying. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Tell us a little bit more about what happened to you on your first day there.
Well, my first day, we got there late in the afternoon, and the funny thing about the first day was they put insecticide on you to kill lice or something, and we went to Chipola Junior College to see a play that the college was putting on. I thought, well, this is interesting, you know, going to a play at the college. But the next day was my learning curve at the school, because that you're sent down to get your school, what grade you're going to be. They figure what grade you're going to be in, and then you work
Hi,
one day,
Liza.
then
How
you
are
go to
you?
school one day, and then you go get your physical, and you get your vaccination shots. So we were told to take all our clothes off, and there was this little
Black guy.
black kid, maybe 12 or 13 years old, and he became sexually excited, and the doctor walked by and grabbed his private parts and kind of giggled as he did it. You know, the doctor, like it was a joke or something, and
In a lot of the
about 10
interviews, they
minutes
talk about
later,
inappropriate touching.
the doctor came to give the boy his vaccination shots, and the boy started freaking out. And he said, the boy's saying, no, no, no. And he's crouching down. He's backing up and trying to get away from the needle and the doctor. And the doctor grabbed him up and just started slapping him. And he said, shut up, shut up, shut up. So I'm sitting there just terrified. Never been away from home before.
Do you imagine
Came from a good family.
some vandalism and you end up there?
No, and realize I have.
On your first day, that's what he's already experiencing, and it's not ended yet. So wild. It's so crazy to me.
Just made some serious mistakes.
And you can't go back. How long were you there?
I was only there 4.5 months. At that moment, I became just extremely focused. I said, how do I get out of here? What do I got to do to get out of this place? And I just became focused on that one thing. And to this day, I can focus on one thing like so intently, like this White House Boys thing. I've been on this since 2009. But sometimes if you give me a whole bunch of things to do, I kind of get confused. So I feel like maybe that attribute of mine, or that, and it's not an attribute, but that condition I have, I think it dates back to October 12th, 1966.
When you focused on that one thing, getting out of there.
Get out. How am I going to get out of here? And
well, you've been doing a lot of work, including writing a book. We're going to get to some of that in just a moment, but I want to come back to you, Robert, because as you allege, two other incidents happened to you. Some of them very graphic in nature. Just warning our viewers. Tell us a little bit more.
You're talking about the hospital. I was a hospital boy there. Now, I don't know how I got this cushy job, because it wasn't a good job. You were inside. You'd have to go out and do work in the sun, hard work or anything like that. Your duties were just mopping the floor twice a day, processing new boys, which is getting urine samples and stool samples, and then they would hand you a needle and they would fill it up, but you would be the one to give the shots. You would help the doctor set a broken leg or lance a hematoma, or do stitches. And
you were a nurse. How did you know to do? You were taught to do this?
I was taught, yes,
Okay.
and I took to it. I mean, it seemed interesting to me. I was thinking, oh, Dr. Kildare, this is good,
Okay.
And they dressed you up. You went every day. You went into a little room and changed into hospital whites, And we did do some procedures, and it was interesting. The other boy that worked there couldn't deal with the blood. He'd faint. We had one boy that had a hematoma that was big as my fist, and when the doctor lanced it, it went clean to the ceiling. And that was a mess to clean up. But what happened to me there that I'll never forget, it was
All the
just
stories
same
I
old
hear,
thing,
they just get
after
worse.
day and so forth. But I came in one morning and I saw a boy lying in a bed, close to the end. And as I got closer, I saw that he was shaking, just shaking like this, and he was crying. And I noticed that he had towels on him and they were all blood soaked, I thought, oh boy. And I had seen a couple of the big boys, and I'm talking about the 16, 17-year-old boys that had gotten a bad beating, for running. When you ran, you got 100 lashes. That's serious. You're talking about a whip that weighed as much as a baseball bat. It was this thick. It was double ply with a sheet metal insert.
Little man says hello and he apologizes for his tablet.
Probably that long. There, you had the ceiling, and they would just tick that ceiling, and it was swung overhead as hard as a man could swing it. And most of them were big men. Troy Tidwell may have had one arm, but that one arm was huge, big arm, strong. So I went up to the nurse, changed my clothes, went up to the nurse, and she said, okay, go in there and clean that boy up, and then mop the floor, and put the bloody towels in the bucket, set the bucket in the room, you know. So I went over to him and I got a small and thin, not very deep metal pan and some peroxide, and I half and half that, half peroxide, half water. And I got over to him and I kind of put my arm and I said, I took the towels off, and he was moaning and groaning, and, you know, uh, I said, I'm going to lift you up just a little bit and slide this tray under you, or try to, you know. And he was young. He was maybe a year older than I. I weighed 105. He might have weighed 115 pounds. He had a very youthful boy's face, nice looking kid, you know. And when I took those towels off, I couldn't believe what I was seeing, because I had never seen anybody beaten that bad. Where his skin was gone. You know, on his buttocks was like raw hamburger meat. If you can imagine that, being red, blue, bloody, you know, and just a mess, you know, and it shocked me. You know, I thought, oh my God, you know, this could happen to you. And when I put my arm under him, and he grabbed my arm like I was his mom or God or somebody, and just wouldn't let go of it. And he shook and cried. And I tried to be as gentle as I could, and wished him with that and patted him with a towel. And he screamed a little bit, you know, because it hurt. And then I took Vaseline and put on him, you know, to help him heal, and then rewrapped him with the towels. But he had my arm the whole time. And I tried to ask him, what is your name, you know? And he just kept shaking, you know. And it was so traumatic, it even had me crying at that point, you know, because I felt so bad for this kid. And I thought, all I could think of was, they could do this to you, you know. I'd never seen it that bad. And so the next day I came in, it was the same thing. And the third day I came in, he was gone. And you didn't ask questions, you know. And usually boys that were beaten, got the 100 lash beating, they would put them maybe in the
Okay, I'm
hospital
back.
for a little bit and doctor them up, and then they would put them
He
up
loves you
to
too, Laza.
isolation. And there was a doctor there named Dr. Souza, who actually made his own medical potion by going over to the slaughterhouse, extracting red bone marrow from the cows and mixing it with something, which we believe might have been Thorazine, because the boys that drank this potion said, well, I don't hardly remember what happened. It was just a haze, you know. And of course, that was
This
totally
is new to me.
illegal. I called the FDA, Federal Food and Drug Administration, about it. You know, and they
I'm
said
telling
that
you
was
guys, they all just get
illegal
worse.
back then. You can't do that to juveniles. And so they either took him there, or if he was in deep shock. You know, I talked about this to a couple of doctors that I go to, and because I wanted to know what, you know, that was like. And they may have taken him to Chattahoochee, which is the mental hospital. It was also a hospital.
But you really don't know what
Or
happened
they
to him.
might have killed him.
But you don't.
I don't know, because when you're there, when you're in that big of a shape with shock, when shock is that great, you know, it could either kill you or it could stay with you for a long time, and you come out of it not quite right. Well, they can't send you home like that, although they did do that, you know, to boys. So I don't know what happened to him.
A lot of what you're saying is based on what you say you witnessed and what you experienced, and some of what you say is what you believe or what you kind of
It's
speculate.
conjecture, yeah. I
Right.
don't know
Right.
if they did take him up to isolation. I don't really know what happened to him, you know, but it was just a dramatic and event that I'll never forget, that
Mhm.
boy's face.
Mhm. I see. Let me ask you this now. You know, I don't know how far you want to go with this, but you did disclose that you had uh, the brutal beatings of yourself,
Mhm.
That's the
and I
truth,
wanted
Bonnie.
to dive a little bit, or to go a little bit deeper into that, because you were talking about rape and sexual abuse
Mhm.
that allegedly went on at Dozier. You say that allegedly happened to you.
It did. And I was actually beaten twice more by Tidwell and a pockmarked faced man who I never knew who he was. He only seemed to be there at night. And Tidwell came in and sat down on the edge of my bed and grabbed me by the arm and took me into another room and told me, "You were smoking. And if you tell me you weren't, you're going down." Well, I was going down, and they beat me about 25 lashes and told me, "Hold that rail and quit crying and don't scream." And, you know, um, they did that twice. And that was so horrible in the middle of the night just to have this coming and not even another boy with you for comfort, being taken down by these two men that you just thought were monsters. I was only 13. I'd never been in a fight, never got sick, and I didn't know anything about pain, let alone brutality. And then one night they came in and all I felt was a hand around my mouth. And before I knew it, I was out of there just like that. And they put me in a car, and I thought, oh, here we go again. They're going to beat me again.
How terrifying. How
But
could you
they
ever sleep
went to
again
some
after something
place,
like that,
and it was dark, and I couldn't see anything. And at that time, by the administration building where the White House was, it was a little bit lit up, And they took me out, and they took me down a set of stairs. They had a flashlight, and they opened the key and took me in the room, And that was so bad that I couldn't describe the nitty-gritty details
I wouldn't want you
to. It's I can't even go there. My mind won't let me go there. But what I can remember is Tidwell on his knees on my back, and I could feel the little bones in my body crunching. And I thought, oh my God, they're going to kill me. And the next thing I knew, I saw the cottage lights in the distance, and they were hazy and orange colored and were swinging back and forth, And when I was deposed, I told them this to the FDLE, and a girl that was typing stopped, and she said, "Like you were being carried?" And I said, "Yeah, I never thought of that, And didn't realize it, but she was more than just typing. She was also a psychoanalyst of some sort. And I don't remember them taking me to bed. I remember getting up. I was very sore,
I understand.
And my chest hurt,
I understand. Let me say this. You've mentioned a couple of names, including Tidwell and a doctor. And I just want to say that these men have not been charged, have not been convicted of any
I was
crimes.
13. I was a year over the hill.
Right. I just want to say that they are innocent. And in this conversation, it's your experience of what happened to you and what you say.
I was
but
devastated when I found out you had to
Right.
be 12 or under,
I got you.
because rape of 12 and under and capital murder, that's all they get you for now,
Right.
Because of statute of limitations and sovereign immunity.
Right.
But Dee, the FDLE did seem to go out of their way to try to discredit Robert's story.
And I don't want to do that here on the Aware Show.
No, I'm not comparing you to that.
I got you.
I'm just saying, the statute of limitations, like Robert mentioned, was passed on the sexual abuse and the physical abuse and everything else. But it seemed like they kind of went out of their way to even downplay the sexual abuse, like they tried to discredit the people that reported it. And, people that report sexual abuse, a man to report sexual abuse, it takes a whole bunch of courage. I mean, it's a courageous thing. The guys.
Very much so. Very much
And
so.
I can congratulate.
I wasn't the only one.
Yes.
Remember Captain Nelson?
Yes.
And he was a man.
Again, the names.
Yeah.
Let's just be leery of.
This was a victim. This was a victim.
Right,
and he got
right.
right up there, and he was a big man, and working on a boat, tough guy, you could tell. And he just said, yeah, I was raped there. I was 11 years old, and I felt like I should open my mouth about it.
There are a number of stories.
And I just thought, gosh, I can't hardly even say that, and I thought he was so brave to bring that out. There was something in the hospital that happened that I didn't tell you about. And that was about the guards. I went in there one day, and it was raining. It was raining hard, and I was getting soaking wet, you know. And I went in there and went into the little linen closet and stripped my wet clothes off and started putting on my hospital whites. And I hear the door open on the side. There was a side entrance, and in come two guards. They had their raincoats on and stamping their feet, and I could hear their lighters flick open, and they lit cigarettes. I was standing behind a door that was louvered. In other words, it was slats. You know, you couldn't see through it, but you could certainly hear through it. You know, you see those a lot in Florida. So I was as close as I am to you, to the man that had his back to me that was lighting up a cigarette. And he said, well, you know, that boy that ran last night, you know, I think he's going to end up in the swamp because they've really had it with him, you know. And the other guy said, yeah, he said, you know, he's being really ornery. And I don't know how many times it makes it that he's run, but he's going to end up in that swamp. He's not coming back. And they said it so casually. And I put my hand up to my mouth because I was afraid they'd hear me breathing, you know, because if they knew I had heard that, that would have been the end of me, you know. And that was a very long 5 or 6 minutes or 10 minutes, however long it was, that I was just paralyzed with fear. But I knew then that these whispers and tales of throwing kids in the swamp that the kids were talking about were true, because they didn't know I was there and they were just talking.
I see.
Dee Dee, can I add something to
Absolutely,
Robert's
Andrew.
story? I've known kind of as the White House Boys researcher. I've done, and one of the research I did was I went through the student ledgers from 1937 to 1961 and wrote down every boy that escaped, all the information it had about him and his escape. And then
And you have some of that
yes,
information.
I have that here. It's well, I don't know how well people can see it at home, but there's 169 names of boys who ran away, and it supposedly successfully escaped. And so, but the only reason I could go to 1961 because
I don't know
juvenile
how many
records in
boys
the state
there
of
was
Florida
there at one time,
are
but I do know that like 100 boys from the ages of 6 to 16 died there from 1900 to 1973. So that's quite a few. I'm not sure though. I know by the looks, when you look at the beds, it looks like it would be anywhere from 25 to 50 at least.
sealed for 50 years. And it's meant to protect the juveniles, you know, so they can go on, live a life and not have that record following them. But the way it's turned out is it's also protected Florida, because what happened, the thing, Robert, the two
Incidents.
guards,
Yeah, yes.
two guards, that was 1964. And if that boy was killed and they put down in the records he ran away, well, we can't go over there and look at the ledgers until, for that's volume 9, until July the 23rd, 2016. That's 16 months away from now.
And some of them even longer, because some of those
some of the
reportedly
ones we've heard, like a death in 1980, we can't look at that until 2034.
So it's kind of difficult, you're saying, to maybe collaborate or corroborate some of the stories, because you're unable to,
unless they were able to
records.
hide the boy some other way, or you know, doctor the ledgers or something. I don't know, but I would hope, like an attorney watching this program would maybe help. We don't have any money. Robert's probably out of money. I'm out of money, and we need an attorney to help us to get into these records, because I believe if there's a smoking gun, they're in the ledgers, the 60, the student ledgers. You know, a boy probably ran away, and now the FDLE would say, well, how do you know they didn't
We can't say what they would say, but I
Well,
understand
no,
what
they
you're
said
saying.
they said this to me.
Okay.
They said, "How do you know they didn't run away and change their name?" And I said, "Well, I don't know that, but I don't know how many kids are really experienced in creating a new social security number, a new ID. I don't think many kids are really that sophisticated to create a new identity."
I gotcha. Let's quickly get back to the White House Boys, because that's what you all call your organization, and you help to establish it. The White House being what you all say was the torture chamber. Tell us more about the organization that you've established under that name, and what you've been doing now since.
Well, it happened in the strangest way. I got a call from a former secretary and number one girl on the road. I had a road business, and Monica Smucker lives in Indiana. And we were talking, and we talked about the Martin Anderson case. That was a black boy that went into a boot camp in the morning, came out dead in the afternoon. And he actually was given a lethal dose of ammonia. And they had 4 guards and a nurse standing over him. You probably have heard of that story. And they went to court, and nothing happened, And I blurted out. I said, Monica, I was in a place like that.
So you wanted to start an organization.
I went ahead and told her about it, and she said, well, you got to do something. Okay. And I said, Monica, was 50 years ago. Well, that wasn't good enough for her. She Googles up Roger Kaiser the very next day, and there's a picture of the White House and a description of Roger Kaiser's beating and his email address. I looked at that, and
So what was your motivation behind actually starting, or you all starting the White House Boys?
We first had to meet, and once we did, we had to ask each other. I said, do you think they're still doing this? Did you ever hear about them stopping? Well, no, So we decided we would, the newspaper, we would go to the press on this. It had to be more than just me and him. I said, this place has been open 100 years. There's got to be a trail of evidence somewhere. And we started searching. We went to the Florida Archives, the Florida Memory Collection, the Florida Criminal Archives, and we found that there was a huge, long list of people clean back to their very first inspection in 1903, when they found boys as young as 8 in step chains that had to do a man's work in the field. If he didn't, he was thrown down and beaten brutally and unnecessarily.
And I want to get to some of that, and we're going to run down on time here if we don't quickly move along here. So I don't mean to be rude to you, but there's so much to talk about.
There is.
And if we don't move along, we're going to miss some of it. So you decided that you wanted to do something to help be a voice for, of course, victims.
Yes, we wanted to get it to the paper, and we got it. Michael O. McCarthy happened to be a journalist and got our letter.
Okay.
Took it to Carol Marvin Miller. She researched it.
Okay. Have you been back to Marianna since?
Yes, 6 times.
Okay. And what's your first impression when you went back?
Well, the very first thing is when we went during what they called the sealing of the White House ceremony, when Carol Marvin Miller broke her story.
Okay. How did you feel?
It was a surrealistic day.
How about you, Andrew?
I went back and I took a video camera because I was going to go over to do some research, and I went on the campus with a video camera and went into one of the old cottages, the ones I thought I was in, and I wanted to videotape myself. I wanted to see what my emotions was going to be like. I started hyperventilating, and it was like something. All these memories were coming back, and it was quite have you ever seen that video, Robert?
I think so. Yeah.
It was an interesting. I just wanted to record my own emotions.
I see. You call yourselves the White House Boys, and I get that from what I've researched and in talking to you all, but you also say that.
Okay, so I've got to pause this. We are at 37 minutes. So I dropped the link in chat. We're at 37 minutes. If you guys want to go finish it, my little one's up and he's willing to eat, and he's not been feeling good. So I'm going to let him eat, and I'm going to go feed him. But you guys take care of yourself. Sorry I have to end so abruptly. But go watch and finish it, and we'll talk about it next time. Bye.